Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the webinar in our series today, 5 tips for designing your AI strategy to realize quick success. I'm Al Williams, Director of Solutions Engineering at Amplience, and I'm joined by Kalpesh Patel, CIO of the Commerce Team Global. And now I want to cover a few housekeeping items before, Kalpesh, I ask you to introduce yourself. So first and foremost, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature in the Zoom webinar. We'll absolutely save time for questions at the end. This meeting is going to be recorded and it will be sent to all attendees after. And if you do so choose, if you want to use the chat feature or the Q&A feature and share what AI tool or maybe feature that you find most useful today, or even just most fun. I really love the Bing image generator. It's like back to Bing. It's really, so interesting. But with that, Kalpesh, thanks for joining me today so much. I'm really looking
Thank you.
forward to your insights. Would you mind introducing yourself and maybe what AI product or service has found its way into your regular routine?
Yeah, no worries. So I'm Kalpesh Patel. I'm CIO at the Commerce Team Global. Well, on day to day, I'm involved in multiple projects. And in terms of usage of AI, we have a couple of usage at the moment. We have started using AI to help us with code in some cases. And we're exploring other technologies as well, wherein it can help us solve customers' issues, whether being in support or on day-to-day routine tasks.
Wow. Yeah, that's great from a code standpoint too. I feel like as we're going to see,
Yeah.
there's going to be, I'm sure, a significant amount of change in the way we just run operations in general in all areas of the business. So looking forward to getting into it. And with that
Yeah.
said, before we really dive in, we're hoping that you leave today with a few key takeaways. One is understanding how to change the conversation from AI from maybe a buzzword to real business impact and ROI. 2 is maybe identifying tools or use cases to maybe start implementing AI that would return the highest ROI for you. And lastly, how to actually start implementing those strategies. I'm really excited for Kalpesh to provide his insight there. And really, before we get into the real meat of the conversation, Kalpesh and I are going to give a quick overview of our companies and how we're positioning AI. And so with that, I'll kick off and start with, who is Amplience? So Amplience is the AI content company. In short, we provide the world's best services to generate and manage shopping experiences. You can see on the left over here in the image that more than 450 of our brands and retailers have served over 2.1 trillion content objects in the last year. So we understand shopping, we understand digital experiences, and most importantly, we understand scale. And to do this, we continue to make huge investments behind our product to make sure that our platform and all of our tools exceed performance and reliability characteristics for your customers' demands. Now, in thinking about what the platform is and what it does, as the AI company, our platform is the foundation for building, planning, and delivering shopping experiences. At our core, we have a super flexible CMS and a fully feature-rich digital asset management system specifically designed around shopping and retail use cases, be that maybe campaign management or product media delivery or shoppable content. And that's really backed by the industry-leading global content delivery capabilities and marketplace extensions that integrate into all of our e-com and our mock partners. They make it really easy to connect with the rest of any of our e-com systems, as well as all of these services are supercharged with AI that have been trained for shopping specific use cases. That could look something like alt text generation, image background removal, or even SEO metadata and blogs and content. So, I did mention our 450 brands and retailers, but I'd be amiss if I didn't say that our customers were really at the heart of what we do, and we're loved by some of the biggest brands in the world, talking about scale. And so the expertise in the heart of our business comes from all of our developers working to support any of these and all of these retail use cases, and also kind of moving and continuing moving forward to support the scale and the need of the business, specifically in the AI space. And so with that, Kalpesh, would you give an overview of who the global team or the Commerce Team Global is?
Yeah. So we are integration expert who help do customer e-commerce right for our consumer and retailers. We work and support multiple. We work and support multiple e-com platforms like Salesforce, Shopify, BigCommerce, and we help integrate this platform with highly specialized solutions like Amplience for content management. Also, we help collaborate with other partners. We help our clients solve their challenge and needs by providing quality services and solutions. We also collaborate with our partners like Amplians to identify and solve the new challenges for our customers. We provide services to multiple clients, as you can see in the next slide. We provide services to multiple clients in different regions, starting from UK, US, and APAC. So that's the Commerce Team Global.
Oh, fantastic. I can definitely see you and your team also are experts in scale at looking at some of these companies' logos for sure. All
Yeah.
right, so I think at this point, thanks so much for giving an overview. Let's hop into it if you are ready. And I think
Yes.
that if we get started, it's almost impossible escaping hearing the term AI in any scenario. I mean, like my toothbrush claims to be AI enabled, and I'm really serious about that. So I know personally speaking, many decision makers in the e-commerce industry that I speak with are typically hesitant, but they're curious about AI and really the impact that it can have for their business. So Kalpesh, based on your customers and trends that you're seeing in the market, what's your take on the adoption of AI, maybe specifically for those brands and retailers? And do you have any statistics around those?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm like, if you look at the current market scenarios, it's proven that businesses need to adopt the latest technology to survive in the competitive markets. With AI set to upend nearly every industries, one thing is clear for organization is to start thinking how to strategically integrate AI into businesses. If they don't start exploring the potential of AI innovations, I think they'll have challenges with the competitors who are moving ahead with AI. So if you hear recent news, so most of the organization are running behind AI at the moment. So if you look at the statistics that is specified in the presentation right now, almost 84% of the organization are already using AI-bound technologies in different ways. Like as I gave an example of generating code or asking AI to write articles or processing complex data and doing complex tasks. So that way, if at the same time, if you don't have solid implementation plan in place, chances are that the results that you desire will be lesser than what you expect. That's why creating an effective AI implementation strategy requires careful planning and consideration of various factors. And I think that's what we'll talk about next.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that. It sounds, I know 84% sounds high, but I suppose that also goes into effect of chat bots and things that people have been adopting iteratively.
Yeah.
But what does it look like to really have that strategy? I love that you said that kind of AI strategy, because I think that the next like hurdle is determining how you can leverage AI to return the maximum impact to your business. And so that might be the first thing is, we oftentimes focus on when prioritizing things, what's the top line revenue? But as you mentioned, if your strategy isn't put into place at the foundation, you're never going to be able to achieve what you're really looking for. And so specifically for retailers, we put together kind of 5 key use cases that you may start with, starting with content creation. We know scale is the word here, whether it's generating content that's personalized for segments, social channels, new business units, markets, brands, locales, and that could be anything from maybe imagery to short form and long form content. Another is data analysis. So AI, right, has the capability to identify and uncover patterns that we might not realize. So as we know that data analysis goes hand in hand, just as you mentioned, Kalpesh, that if you don't have a really great strategy, you're not going to be able to pivot. Another option to kind of start with or start looking at from a use case standpoint with AI would be maybe image generation. This one's a really great use case for like a crawl, walk, run approach. You can really start by maybe kind of introducing 1 to 5 segments as a crawl. As you walk, maybe you want to do regional or geographical segments. And then as you run, it can be really specific and hyper personalized with that image management and generation. Another use case is around automation. So whether that be code or whether that be kind of menial tasks that typically are very important for your business, and ADA, maybe like image tagging or alt text generation, SEO keywords, but oftentimes eat up a lot of really expensive human capital. And lastly, this one I think is one that everybody's very familiar with and has pretty much been on a lot of people's roadmaps, but how do we start pivoting now from an AI standpoint around product recommendations? This one often has, the closest relationship to top line impact and direct ROI. So that's the one that we typically talk about often. But we know these are great use cases, to kind of leverage as the starting point for evaluation, and kind of determine maybe how you operate today and how you can gain efficiencies in the future. And so you might be wondering, like, well, how do I actually do that? So we're going to cover that in the design strategy of kind of the next discussion. Now, thinking about AI and what AI powers, Kalpesh, you mentioned a whole multitude. I talked about a toothbrush. You talked about code generation. So we prioritize the importance, as I mentioned before, of impact of top line dollars, really, which is what we see with things like personalization and product recommendation that typically gets prioritized first. But implementing AI as a strategy across your business really allows you to capitalize on those areas where you may not have known you had those leaky holes, right? Like increasing SEO and people efficiency. So we've seen that as well, in a really great example from one of our customers under the Tapestry brands, who leverages our AI alt text generator. And this is a real life scenario of, not only a task that was eliminated as kind of this repetitive task, but also allowed for kind of governance and uniformity. So Stephanie mentions that previously our teams didn't have a lot of guidance on what to input for image alt text, but with the Amplience AI alt text generator, they can automate recommended descriptions with the click of a button. So kind of really showcasing not only the power of automation, but also of uniformity, I suppose, as well. Now, in this case, just as I mentioned, Kalpesh, I think we're going to get into in these steps. I really want to hear from you some real life use cases around these steps. But just as you mentioned, I'm sensing that digital transformation might soon be replaced or paralleled with the term AI strategy transformation, which I love that you had already kind of teed up earlier. So that question comes to, we know some of the use cases, we know everyone's talking about it, we know it's going to have an impact, but how do we actually get started? So I'm going to cover the tips, and then I'll ask you, if you don't mind, to share some of your kind of real life experience in the world on how we can maybe start implementing those. So
sounds fair.
The first one, I think, is define your purpose and objectives. I think that this is really, if you don't have a goal of what success looks like, how can you track your progress, right? We know this for any project, but I think this one's really important because AI can be so lofty. So Kalpesh, from your perspective, what are some key opportunities and challenges that brands can focus on to hone in on metrics of success, or challenges that they can start to tackle?
Yeah, so there are three key takeaways for this. When you start, when you say AI, it's quite big, quite huge. So it's possible that when you dwell into it, it's possible that you may get lost somewhere. So you have to start very you need to understand the specific challenges and pain areas that you are facing right now, and then understand whether AI can help in this for these challenges. So you have to start. You can start by understanding the specific challenges or pain points that you or customer face, and then engage with stakeholders across different departments to identify areas where AI can help make meaningful impact. It can be anything from your internal processes, workflows, or external facing as well. It could be something that solves issues, challenges faced by a customer, but you'll need to assess and prioritize which use cases will yield better return. AI can have multiple uses in organization, such as we talk about multiple examples like generating content, generating code, or generating alt tag by looking at the image. So there are multiple use cases, But however, the success depends on the type of AI we use for each use cases. Hence, it's essential that you do thorough research to know which options are better for you, for what you want to achieve, how much training, direction, and redirection is going to require.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too of the training and redirection is that, accounting for, hey, taking a look at your operational process and do we need to add more people? Do we need to reallocate people? Where does that fit? So I think that's a really huge one to think through that permeates through just those kind of who the end user is or consumer is of the AI. Yeah, that's great. I think so. If we go back to the kind of the five key areas or topics, talking about the second one is really sort of fostering an innovative culture, right? It doesn't, this at this point in time, I feel like isn't really a top down or bottom up approach for AI. It's a new way of thinking, just as you mentioned. It is in every aspect. And so, Kalpesh, from your perspective, have you seen this work or how have you seen this work successfully maybe for your customers in building a team that fosters innovation for AI adoption?
Yeah. So here, there are four key takeaways. So I think the first one is talent acquisition. So you will need to you will need the AI engineers and data scientists
Mhm.
capable of filling the spots on multi-role teams. They'll also need business side, like you will also need business side employee to understand workflows and business processes as well as the pain points. And out of those pain points, you need then they will help you identify the opportunities within the enterprise that could benefit from AI. Organization with successful AI programs can combine existing team and new hires who have prior AI experience that can add to your company culture. Uh, new hires can work and train existing employees who can contribute to institutional knowledge to the projects. Organization must offer training programs, like you'll need training programs so that you can train your existing workforce at the same time. At the same time you prepare for opportunities for hands-on learning and experimentation with internal AI projects, which will help you get ready faster. Of course, in certain situation, you may need to look at outside your organization for by using either outsourcing model or existing product and solutions to speed up the implementation.
Yeah, and I think that I really love that you have that bullet of kind of outsourcing because I know that that seems sometimes like it can be a negative word or a negative term or that it's pushing, another that it's reallocating resources. But I think that's important too of having new talent and being able to uncover new ways of working that maybe we can't even see. And then of those consistently running your business of that overlap or transition period, but being able to leverage either outsourcing resources or even outsourcing tools to help supplement. So I really like that that was an added bullet there. So thanks for some of those like real life how to kind of get started. This one, I think, from my perspective of the third is one of the most important, but is probably the farthest from the top line revenue. So this one is one that is like everybody always wants, but nobody wants to prioritize. So can you give us three tips on how you can improve data quality like today without making it this huge kind of program that really needs to be enriched, prioritized, right? Because this is like the most important one for your AI strategy.
Yeah, as you said, this is the most important one. So in AI, we always call data is king.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
without data, there is no AI. So you need good data to help AI make better decisions. Without good data, it will be difficult for not only for AI but even for human to decide whether what should be the outcome of certain tasks. So that's why AI requires vast amount of good data. So you must plan and ensure availability of sufficient abundance of data The more data you have, the more likely you can develop machine learning models, and AI system can solve problems for you. uh, to ensure that they have the needed data. You must also identify the internal and external data sets which are required to improve the outcome of AI. This involves, like, this can involve identifying the data, cleaning the data, securing the data, and structuring the data. So AI can be as effective as you want it to be. Uh, then you'll also need to invest into right system and infrastructure, because having data is it's one thing, and then processing and then
Mhm.
getting the actual outcome of the data is another thing, and that doesn't come easy, right? So you'll have to either invest in tooling infrastructure, so that when you ask something to AI, it gives you relevant and high quality result. So as I said, data is king. Without good quality data, it will be even difficult for AI to give you what you desire.
Yeah, I think that's a really great perspective to provide on having the right infrastructure, and also kind of coupled with outsourcing is what tools do you use? So we know there are so many global and open source, not open source, but just kind of like public resources to use. Let's take ChatGPT and as an example, right? There's a ton of data, and they have built the infrastructure to support that and to support all of that data, but it may not be specific to you or your business. And so I think that's really important that as you're going through this journey and you're looking at outsourcing or you're looking at tools, can you have both? Can you have your own internal business and your own internal data that's managed, but also leverage tools that are maybe specific to either your industry or your data or your customer set that can help offset some of that as well. So yeah, that's great. Love the two of those together. Thank you for those. That is,
Yeah.
I know data is super, super important, especially with AI. I love that. Data is king there. Number 4 out of 5 that we came up with was this one. I think is really just a dovetail on the last 2 or 3 is just integrating AI into your business DNA. And what does that really mean? This one I think marries innovation, it marries data quality, and it marries defining the success to allow your business the ability to kind of regularly review those trends, and then make sure that you can address, and pivot quickly to continue to improve. So if you've always done what you've always done and now you're just collecting more data, are you actually integrating that into your business DNA? So, Kalpesh, this initiative seems like it could be the most lofty because it's not as kind of acute or prescriptive as the other two. So, can you provide an example of maybe how businesses may begin to integrate AI into their business DNA today?
Yeah, sure. So as we have gone through like a couple of points, the first one was to identify the pain areas, the challenges, which AI can help solve and give you good returns. But that doesn't happen by itself, right? So as we said, like, you need data, then you need proper infrastructure. Now, only that will not solve your problem. So you will have to start somewhere. And I think, as per my experience and as per my understanding, I think, you first you'll need to explore the AI technologies.
Mm,
You'll have to, so there are different use cases that we are trying to solve. Now, with different use cases, there are different AI technologies, right? So, based on your use cases, I think you first need to identify the AI technologies which can help you solve your particular use case. Then we, once you identify that, then you have to experiment with it, with different algorithms, frameworks, tools, to understand the capabilities, limitations, and see if that particular tool can help you achieve the goal that you have set. So as a next point, I think, once you identify the tool that you want to use for particular use case, then you need to look at, you need to identify the promising projects around those technologies. And then you have to begin experimenting with AI through small case, as like small scale projects or proof of concepts.
Mhm.
So you should start small, then put some KPIs and goals around it, and see whether this will yield the result that you are expecting. Because if you start on large scale, then it's possible that midway through you will see you'll decide like it's not going to work out, and then whatever investment you have made behind that project is it can go to waste. So that's why we would suggest starting small, put some KPIs around it, set the goal which are strategically aligned with your organization, and then try out those different projects. But along the way, I think you need to evaluate, measure, and monitor the results as well, because business often fail in their AI initiative because they rush into the starting the projects and
Mhm.
abandon them like halfway through because they are not yielding any result. So instead, you should refine the project as they move it into full scale production like projects, which would which is more likely to deliver the valuable returns. You should monitor the performance and outcome of your AI experiment against defined goals.
Mhm.
Uh, Use of like you need to use data driven insight as well with your projects, and this is like iterative process. It's not that once you decide this is how it's going to work, that will not give you the good result. So this is iterative process. You have to keep on trying different options, which can provide maximum flexibility. So iterative process can provide maximum flexibility, agility, and faster evaluation of progress to determine whether an alternative approach is required.
Yeah, it's almost like you've kind of moved right into that last point, which really pulls everything together, which is just as you mentioned, continue to monitor, adjust as needed, right? It's like
Yeah.
implementing one AI tool is great, but if you don't have maybe the very specific expectation that you're planning to get out of that, and you don't have the measurements and you don't have the timeline to address that, nor do you have the tools to test, is that actually more efficient or does that yield better results for my customer than what, kind of you don't putting those plans into place then allows you to continue to monitor. But this I know is really hard because this ultimately is a necessity for businesses to change their operational patterns of continually assessing, continually reviewing. So yeah, thank you for providing those in perspective and context. Now, I think the one thing that we didn't address in this topic that are over this discussion, but it really is permeates through all of these and is something that everyone is talking about is around governance and compliance. So can you give us your perspective on how brands should be thinking about ethicality and compliance considerations as they're implementing all of these kind of five strategies and where they're starting with their AI journey?
Yeah. So we have gone through starting with a small idea or small use case. Then we went into preparing the team. Then we looked at the data, and we looked at the experiment as well. But again, with that, when you say data, I think there are quite a lot of things attached to data.
Mhm.
For example, if you ask someone like, give me your data, no one is gonna give you that data, right? So it's something that is that needs to be very 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 much secure. So that's why when you start with AI projects, I think the first thing that you need to consider is security,
Mhm.
privacy, and the compliances. I think these are key nowadays. I think these are the key challenges because every day you hear a new fraud that comes up. So it could be like deepfake, or it can be like cloning of voice to deceive the victims. Asymmetrical data intelligence to analyze large amount of data to identify potential victims. So that is why, of course, data is king. But I think along with that, having ethical practice and compliance considerations is also a challenge that one will need to understand, and one will need to prepare some foundation around it. So considering like lots of frauds these days, lots of issues these days around this, I think governments all around the world, they will start creating more complex compliance requirements for public and private usage of AI. So if around this, I think when you start a project, the first question that we should ask is what can go wrong with data. I
Mm.
think that's very important. Then you, because you know what data you're processing, right? So then once you know what data you are processing, you also then understand the challenges around it. So it could be a pie data, it could be, let's say, your payment data. So it could be anything, right? It could be financial data of an organization as well. So when you start with the AI project, I think you need to consider what can go wrong. And then when you are starting with any particular AI project, I think there are some key areas that you must first consider. That is, you need to define the data protocols. uh, you need to define the audit. Like you need to define the audits which could happen on the regular basis, maybe monthly, quarterly, to see whether the data that you have stored or processing are secure enough, are proper, are it's not putting customer data into danger. Then you also need to consider the diversity and the awareness training as well in this, because of course you will have the AI teams. You can call them champion, but are they aware about the diversity? Are they aware about the biases that this data can, the data can result into? Then you need to also have the monitoring around this. Maybe it can be automated or to manual to start with, but then you need to consider AI into that as well, which can monitor the data and see if there are any leaks or any issues that could cause a potential legal issue with your organization. And you also need to consider the security awareness training as well for your team, which is quite essential. So they understand that the data that they are processing right now, if they land into wrong person hand, then it can cause quite a lot of issues for your organization.
Yeah, just as you said, you start thinking about how the data can go wrong. And I remember hearing, I think it might have been on a podcast of like a VP saying the last thing I want as a retailer is my name to be in the news. And so how do you mitigate and avoid that? And there are some really great bullet points that you had of maybe things to ask or things that are going to start cropping up and be far more important on RFIs and RFPs for those outsourced AI tools. So I think not only is it really important for you internally as a business to make sure that you have those governance and standards, but also make sure that you're holding your partners accountable to them as well. So thank you. Those are really, really interesting. I think at this point, we have come to the end of the presentation here, and I've really enjoyed all of your perspective and all of the information from kind of real world scenarios. So thank you so much. We will open the floor up to some Q&A. And Beth, if you don't mind taking a look at the Q&A box and sending any questions over from the audience our way.
You are on mute, Beth, I think.
Thank you, good spot. We've had quite a few during the session. So the very first one is, where do you see the most value for leveraging AI technology in merchandising? Al, do you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. So I think the most value actually is going to be the least sexy, if you will, and it's data capturing. So being able to capture, what I see in the future is kind of, I know that we've got hot spotting and analytic tools, but those are going to become really important, I think, that in the future. So you're going to be able to pivot and be able to take that data and turn that into, you're going to need a couple of strategies. So the data in and of itself, I think, is going to be most influential, but you're going to need to have a strategy and being able to pivot and support that data. So things like maybe product types that are going to be on different models, so different heights, weights, and diversities of models. You're going to see maybe different imagery backgrounds that are going to be experiential to maybe someone that is, of a different segment that's purchasing. So I think that at the kind of middle to the end of the funnel around the product information is going to become really kind of segmented and personalized, and really a greater perspective from diversity standpoint, but it is going to be based on data. So not only being able to pivot to trends, like we saw the Barbie trend, and everyone was being able to change all of your information or all of your data on a dime or all of your images on a dime to kind of like show the pink image. But really, I think that the biggest impact is going to be on how you showcase your product that is relative and specific to your customer base and a multitude of your customer bases, the intersectionality there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Al. Okay, number 2, we have got, what processes can I put in place for effective change management in my organization? So how can I manage fear, uncertainty, doubt? Kalpesh, give us your thoughts.
Yeah. So as every change, I think it brings resistance, and we have to address it from top to bottom communication. Because I'll explain why. So benefit to the team and how they can contribute to this change needs to be communicated to team. We need to review the periodic progress on the change, maintain the list of problems, and address the high priority problems around the change. And we should also share the progress around this with team, so they understand why there is a change with regards to AI, for example, in management, and what we are trying to achieve with the change.
Yeah, completely agree. I think employee engagement, education, and that kind of consistent communication is really, really important.
Yeah.
Thank you. Another one, what are the key use cases for AI in helping my teams to deliver personalized experiences to our customers? Al, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. Key use cases, I think that we covered a number of them, and the things that everyone already knows. So I'll try to think of ones that maybe are slightly outside of the context. So key use cases definitely around product recommendations, cross-sell, upsell, and having those really hyper or specifically personalized to, we see this, I think, really well in grocery today, where it's like, hey, you purchased this, you might have, it almost inhibits the same scenario as you're walking through the grocery store and you happen to see an end cap on an aisle. So I think that's going to continue to be really important. And I think that it's going to pop up in different areas. So that might pop up in things like social channels, which, here's recommended items or a recommended post that has items that are specific to you. I think other use cases, as I mentioned before, are going to be in representing the product specific to your customer. So I think those, based on it's from my perspective and around merchandising, we still know that because product is directly linked to top line revenue and has the most impact in the business, those are going to be where those use cases are going to be focused most often. I'm not saying that anything that we talked about around data isn't important. I think that that is kind of a table stakes, that in order to even start, just as Kalpesh mentioned, figure out kind of what data and information can go wrong in those areas, and then also how you want to deem and define success. So it can seem very overwhelming, but I think those kind of 2 use cases around product recommendations and then just being able to exemplify those products specifically that are going to be really personalized to different segments of customers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in turn, improve the customer experience, right? That's the end goal.
Absolutely.
So absolutely. Kalpesh, we've got one final one. I think this is for you. Can you share any guideline criteria for evaluating AI technology providers and services?
Yep, sure, I can answer that, Beth. So, as we are all aware, like AI is very critical. If and could prove to be lethal if not understood properly. So if you just start to use AI as is, it can be lethal. So or any tool that you think it's that you want to use with AI, it can be lethal. So when you decide or when you're evaluating the technology providers, I think you need to understand few aspects around those. So one, you need to understand the technology, and also meet with service provider that you are going to use in your organization. Then you need to review their practice around data privacy policy and vision, and you also need to understand the roadmap on the tool that you are going to use. Then you need to check whether they're being audited or that they're compliant or not. Because if not, that there's something that is not done, then I don't think that's something that you should use. You also need to check the data isolation and exclusivity as well, to see how they are storing the data, whether they can access the data, or whether it is secure or not, basically. And then the last point is, you need to consider the scalability, because if your tool performs well and if it's yielding good result, that means you'll get more customer. That means scalability will come in question. So whether the technology that you are trying to use, whether it is scalable or not, because if it's not scalable, then it's of no use with your use case.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Kalpesh. We actually have one more question that's just come through. And this is around the AI roles that employees can learn and adopt to kind of further their career, help them in their daily responsibilities. What sort of areas do we see them being able to support, for example?
Yeah, so there are multiple use cases nowadays. When we talk about technology company, there are multiple use cases which you can use to improve your efficiency as an organization. And I think this is becoming key for future as well. Because with this, when you say you are improving your efficiency, that means you're saving cost as well, right? So if I give a good use case is, let's say, we mostly do e-commerce website, right? We create e-commerce website. So if we figure out a way of doing half of it through AI, that means we are saving the cost, and then we can leverage that to help our retailers as well, for example. So AI is going to be quite useful in sorry, just a moment. Yeah, AI is going to be quite useful in terms of use cases with organization. So wherein you can use it for training as well. You can use it for your daily routine task as well. It doesn't have to be limited to organization. A person can also use within organization to improve their productivity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. Great response. And that's all of our questions for today. So thank you both so much for that very insightful conversation. There are a lot of fantastic guidelines, considerations there for brands looking to look for a bit of advice in terms of early AI adoption. And I really appreciate you sharing your insights and expertise. So thank you both very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Just as an update of anything and what's coming next, if you want to scan the QR code, you can take a look at the Commerce Team Global's website, or if you want to see some of the AI services that the Amplience platform provides, you can book a live demo with, might be myself, one of our AI content experts at Amplience. So just as Beth mentioned, thank you so much to everybody for providing questions, and hopefully this was insightful and provided some additional guidance and kind of where to get started. So thank you again for joining. I'm happy to see that we are kind of on time and allow anybody to kind of have some extra time in the morning, afternoon, wherever you are. And thanks again. I really appreciate it.